So, DJ No Dick, putting it downs on the ones, the twos, and the threes if he had something to put down.
DJ No Dick.
DJ No Dick, coming at you live on September 23rd. He's not going to be here.
No. Is the 23rd a weekend? It's next Friday. Next Friday.
Damn.
Yes.
Oh, man, we've burned through September.
Yeah. So
I am looking forward to this gaming season, though. It's been a while since I've really looked forward to a gaming season.
Yeah. I'm going to finish the division finally.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Jen and I talked about that. She wants to... We both want to go back to it, and I know we talked about this last time, but we actually talked about it this week. We both want to go back to it, but it's the exact same thing we said on the last episode, where it's just like there was nothing at the end. The game was filled with awesome in the middle, and there's new content now, and it sounds like it's campaign content, and that's it. And we're gonna play that, and
and then that'll be it.
Yeah, it's the problem that, and this I was talking about people in a Warframe raid with. It's the problem with both Destiny and The Division. You get really excited for them for these like minute big updates, and then it's just there's nothing in between that. Like, I just got done like 3 episodes talking about how psyched I was for the new Warframe update. There's a new Warframe update 2 days from now.
Yeah, when it comes to gaming, I was playing Battlefront. I don't remember when it was. But it's just like there are problems with it. And like, why aren't they having these small updates fixing these small problems? Why is that a problem? Why is that an issue? It should just be easy, just like over-the-air app updates, basically.
When Steve,
at least in my mind.
So the other thing about the Warframe developers is how forward they are with information. They have the dev streams bi-weekly, typically, where 4 of like the people who founded the fucking company sit down in front of a camera on Twitch and just talk about the game and what they're doing with it. And when they were really trying to get the game off the ground in development, one of the developers, Steve, who gets on camera, went over to the Asian markets when the Western markets just would not get behind them. And they told him, they were just like, Western developers do not know how to update games that they want to be persistent frequently enough. And that is where they learn from. And then you actually see this consequence happening after Warframe already existed. It's fascinating, because it's just like Destiny is huge, but it just doesn't get content out there. And while it's a trickle of content sometimes for Warframe, at least it's out there.
Yeah.
And
it's constant.
Yeah, and the only thing that after this, so like, I'll just say it, the first Warframe topic I'm going to talk about on Save the Frame, the main topic, is balancing what they do with updates from here going forward, because as of the last year, what they have started doing is kind of going back to old systems and redoing them or polishing old things. And the one issue with that, where I can agree with some of the YouTubers who are just like, where's the content, is that reworking content isn't the same as bringing in new content. And that's kind of what they started doing this year, was bringing in new weapons and frames and shit with like redone stuff. And some of the redone stuff is phenomenal, and it actually adds to the play and actually like really changed systems and really made things better. But then some of it is just a pixelated fuckfest of 2016.
What happened there?
I don't know
Time
either.
Warner, come back.
We might, since we haven't gotten into it, I might just make this a kind of segment I tack on somewhere. We'll
I
see
think I'm
if we
coming
end up
back.
Yeah, I think so too. But
yeah.
So like that's what I want to talk about, is just like, gotta balance where you do reworks and where you actually add content, and where like you add new systems too. So anyway. On the subject of gaming, welcome back to the second half of the topic on Great Scott Marcus. 5 minutes in. we just got done talking about the Apple conference from this week, and now on the subject of gaming and PlayStation had their event where they finally unveiled what the Neo is, and the first thing right off the bat is we talked in the last half about how they could have just gone to one of the press sources and been like, "This is it. Write some paragraphs. You know what? Here's the video too." Like, and instead they made this big to-do out of it. And Xbox has kind of kicked them in the nuts for that because, well, Xbox basically called their bluff because Xbox will have a console next year instead of this year, an iteration that is going to be 3 times the power, maybe even 4 times the power. The issue with this is that the Xbox does have proportionally less power than the PlayStation 4. The reason for this is there was so much, or at least the seemingly reason for this is there was so much power dedicated to their built-in support for the... What was the thing where the motion control for the Xbox, the Kinect?
Yes.
Yeah. So they, like, a lot of resources within the hardware was built for that. So that helps them a lot. The PlayStation 4 Pro is basically a doubling of power, and they should have just kind of, like, focused on that, like, we can double the power for those of you that want it. And those of you that don't, you have the Slim or your original PlayStation 4. In 2 more years or 3 more years, we're going to quadruple the power of the original PlayStation 4.
But at that point, wouldn't you just call it the PlayStation 5? You're going to quadruple the power like that?
So, basically, what a lot of personalities and just minds of the industry are trying to observe out of this is if we are moving off generations. If this could potentially be the end of, you know, like, all your old games don't matter anymore, you know, like, basically the idea of upscaling, getting closer to PC without being PC, where instead of spending $1,200 on a new rig, you only have to spend $400 or $300 to get PC quality gaming in your living room, or wherever you want it, at your desk if you want it there. And so there's so many sides to this. They didn't do the worst job they could have at showing the difference in 4K and HDR. Basically the draw distance, which is basically the distance you can see in the background, because of the colors, because of the high-res visuals. They basically had a 4K HDR TV there where they showed it at like 1080p and then at 4K. And it was a big difference, and that was very cool that they chose to do it that way. But then they had just footage of games that already looked great in 4K and HDR, and it's just like, but these already looked great before. Like, so did they look great before in 4K and HDR, or... there was this huge dissonance between, like, what they tried to show and then what they actually showed. And they could have just been like, it's a console that is completely ready for the next segment of TV and displays, and it has more power. No, it doesn't have as much power as the Xbox One. But guess what? We're beating the shit out of them in sales. Not that they're doing poorly, but...
What was the second iteration of the Xbox One called? Because they just come out with a new one, right?
The codename... all right, so they came out with the Xbox One S, which is a slim version. And it has an overclocked CPU, which doesn't really do too much. It does a bit. It can help with... not much. Because a lot of... basically, you have to make the same games for both consoles. So, and in CPU, you're basically processing the engines. The GPU is the display technology, your frames, your fidelity, etc.
Yes.
So you would basically, when it comes to processing power, you would almost have to make 2 different games. So the processor would basically just handle things better, which is still great. But that's the thing about slim models. They always handle things better because they're slim. They are better hardware innately.
Right.
The one advantage that the Xbox One S has over the original Xbox One is its display output. It has a display output that can handle 4K and is a 4K Blu-ray player. Since we're on that, I do like Sony's response to why don't they have an Ultra 4K Blu-ray player installed in the machine.
I'm curious about that.
Because their data has shown that more people are just watching 4K content via stream. Which makes complete sense. Because most people aren't just going out and buying tons of Blu-rays anymore. They're actually just streaming. And that's why Netflix is developing a 4K app for...
Are they?
Yeah, they announced that. And like here again, we come back to this dissonance where it's just like, you should have just said that. It's just like, hey, we have this data that shows that people who enjoy 4K are enjoying it via stream, and we're making you a cheaper box by not including a super expensive player for this thing that you use for mostly digital content.
I guess that makes sense.
This would have adversely affected people who do want physical content, but
it's just, it must be then on a different front then, to play a 4K quality game and to watch a 4K quality movie on Blu-ray are in fact different engines. That's got to be what it sounds like, right? There are different computing processes.
Basically what most games do an install process.
Yes.
There are tons of things that go into that install process, load times, which has to do with processing, but there could also be display. I want to say processes, but then I'm just using that word too much.
Yeah,
but yeah, it could also be a part of the display, and games.
Basically, X information from games is already being put on the hard disk of the player.
The difference between a game and content that is recorded is that the game is generated. So, like, the things you see around you, the grass that's moving, like, that is actually being generated while you're playing, as opposed to, like, it's just this thing that happened and it was recorded and you just move through it.
Right.
And, like, you actually move in the grass and that affects the grass. That is generated by the console. So, not being... I'm well informed about how games work, and I probably could do decent going into a school program for developing games now. But I can't really arrive at an answer beyond that.
Yeah, it just seems just bizarre, to be able to to generate that kind of high quality content, but something that's already
here's the other side of that answer. They're applying an update to all the original PS4s that can help with 4K content when it comes to games. So there will be 4K content display on our existing PS4s.
Interesting.
It's just like, fuck. It could have been sold so much better. It could have been simplified. And again, we are talking about another conference that did not need to exist and was overwrought. And it just so like the Slim will also do 4K content. The major things of the PS4 Pro is that, and I really think they could have just if they're getting away from generations, they could have started dropping the 4, but it is more cohesive. So it's so complex.
I feel like that could be like I'm not sure if we can dive into that now or what. Basically, I mean, because it ties into both Apple and Sony now at this point, and even Microsoft.
Let's try to save that towards the end. So let's finish up on bitching about the PS4 and the PS4 Pro and how poorly they sold this. So like the major advantages are a hardware increase, a decent increase in the processor, a somewhat decent increase in the internet capability. Basically, it should download faster than the old PlayStation 4. And a powerful increase in the GPU, which probably means better frames and just better display outputs. I think a lot of the people who are analyzing this are wrong that this wasn't necessary, because I do think this will help a lot with PSVR. But again, there's just another fucking thing that they couldn't show.
Yeah.
It's just like... seeing VR, I was just like, okay, this could definitely use more power. Because you have these two displays that are so close to your face that you just see some of the pixelation. And that might have been the games that I tried, but I watched a dude before me playing it. I should have stayed and watched other people play some of the titles. But seeing it on the display, it was just like, that's beautiful. And it was beautiful in front of my eyes, but at the same time, I was just like, I can see some of this. I can see that I am in a game, as opposed... And, of course, I would recognize that I'm in a game, but at the same time, you're not playing every game, and you're just like, oh, look at all the pixels. So I believe a lot more of the beef under the hood is really going to help with VR. And they should have just fucking... did a write-up. They should have just did a write-up. And I think that would even have given them more hype than just being like, we're going to have this big event.
Grand event.
Yeah. And it was so salesy. It was just so, like, look at what it can do. And everybody was just kind of like, what?
It can play games. In 4K.
The problem with this is, and good for them on being ahead of things, as opposed to being behind, because there's always more critical... Even though this is receiving negative critical reception, there is always more when you're behind. And I remember it. I don't know about you, but I remember it when we got our first HD TV in this house, and we were playing on it, me and a friend, and my parents had gone to bed, and I wanted to be polite, so we came downstairs, and we hooked it up to an SD TV. And it was Rainbow Six Vegas, and we were playing for like 5 minutes, and I was just like, I can't do this. I literally said that. I am not a graphics fidelity whore. I am not a person who really cares about that shit. But man, I remember that moment, and I imagine that it's going to be the exact same when 4K. When we start to replace our first digital TVs with the next era of digital TVs. So. Honestly, there isn't that much more to it, because that's what they sold it on. They sold it on the display. What they really... So like, here's another side to it that would hurt them if they tried to sell it on this. Here's what this game looks like running at 60 frames per second on the PS4 Pro. Here's what it looks like on the regular PS4. Then you're not selling that game on regular PS4s. You're actually giving people a reason not to buy it. So it's just like they should have just done a write-up. That I think it's actually a good move, unlike a lot of people. And with my PS4 set, I feel like it's starting to have some issues. If I were to get a job, I would eventually plan to get myself a new PS4. Without a job going into the holiday season, with my birthday landing on Christmas, that might be my ask. So
you can get the Pro model then, in that way?
It's between the Slim and the Pro. The Pro has the advantage of, like, making Warframe look that much better. And to come back to that game has made me completely change my thinking about the monetary value of any game ever. I have accidentally let it slip on 0 frames per second, how much I think I have spent on that game. I have like I don't want to feel shame towards it because I have spent a lot of money on that game, and I feel I have gotten the value of that money through that game, and a lot of it is because I live here, kind of stuck in this chair, just trying to fight pain on a regular basis. But at the same time, you can think about the money that we spent just drinking in college. We don't get that back. I can always return to Warframe as long as there is internet in the world and servers for running Warframe, and play that game. If there was an apocalypse, I would actually go to London, Ontario, and break into the Warframe offices just to play that game again. Nice. But yeah, like it's just like it makes me question the monetary value, and if I can improve that game experience, I totally would. $60 does not mean what it used to me anymore, right. And that's important. So it's between the Slim. The Slim basically is going to be a super efficient model. So, with as much as I run my PS4, and even if I had a job where I would go work 8 hours a day at the job, I would still come home and turn that box on. Because, as I've said, this is my favorite spot in the world. Partially because that is, because of what happened to me with the level of pain I had to experience and what happened in my life. And part of that is just because, man, I am a gamer. I truly have these chemical responses in my mind that just make it an incredibly enjoyable experience. So it's interesting. It's
some good end thoughts there.
So you actually had something you seem to want to trail back to that almost related to Apple.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, how this would be a quick thing or not, but these naming strategies of Apple products for one, Sony products now, and Microsoft products, it's garbage. It's
my god, I'm like they did that with the Xbox 360. This is the Xbox 360. This is the Xbox 360 Slim. This is the Xbox 360 Elite. It's just like what?
Yeah, and now you get the Xbox One S, and now you get the PlayStation 4 Pro, PlayStation 4, PlayStation Slim. Like I think the Slim, the standard, the Slim
is going to replace the PS4,
right?
So that will help immensely when you replace old models. So like
they've been doing that for a long time. Like they've been doing that since the PS1 days, I think. They did the PlayStation and the PS1, which was the smaller
still
version.
Had both side by side, I think. But with the PS3. I think the PS3 is where they were just like, this is just going to outdate the old.
Right.
model.
I think you might be right. I'm not sure. The PS2, I know it had
they might have towards the end. It sold like hotcakes.
Yeah.
I don't know why hotcakes sell so well. That's another one of those expressions that's just like, pancakes are good, but they're not that good.
But yeah, I mean, and the one Apple product that actually works with its naming strategy. I mean, yeah, you have like. Well, I think the MacBook Pro and Air are, the MacBook
Pro,
Air.
SC, right? Well, what the fuck? Make up your mind.
The Mac, the iMac line is easy, 27, 21 inch, but they all have different models. MacBook Pro is like the better version of the MacBook. I think they should get rid of the Air because the MacBook is actually thinner and lighter than the Air, so the Air just needs to go the fuck away. But like the phones, man, like you've got like the iPhone 6 or 6S, 5 SE, 7 Plus. Like it's too fucking much. And
the RX, the GT, like the Grand Touring.
I think is just adopt with the year.
The iPhone luxury sedan RT, like
it should be like I should have in my hand right now. Instead of the iPhone 6S, I should have the what year is it? 16? The 2015 iPhone.
Yes, I was thinking that
4.7 inch display. You know what I mean? And then
and I actually didn't get to touch on this with Apple. so like with the one podcast where 3 of them are like huge Apple fanboys, and the one Android guy is just like, why are you even getting that phone? Like, because the one guy's talking about getting the iPhone 7, and he's just like, the actual version of it is coming out the next year, the iPhone 7S, and it's just like, that is, you know, really some bullshit. Where it's just like, one, name it by year, just
exactly 2015, 2016. And the MacBook line already does that.
Stop it. Like, I get that you make money, but like, if you actually just stopped iterating so much, you would actually probably improve your sales because your product is more limited.
Yeah, and it seems like now is Microsoft and Sony are kind of going to be going on a similar
now
here.
Now we're already it's I think it's going to be like 3 to 4 years, right, if any of this even succeeds. But like, we're already seeing the problem with the Xbox One S, and it's a problem they could easily get around, the companies themselves. But one of the fucking first people to get an Xbox One S had like 200 some gigs of updates that they had to download.
Jesus Christ.
And that was for the OS. So like, obviously they have to have updated OSs in the console. Otherwise you might be burning through your entire or half of your entire internet bandwidth for that month. Like, that is exactly one of the first things I pointed out on 0 frames per second. I was just like, these are not phones. You are not downloading apps. You are downloading gigs upon gigs. That takes hours, and that takes up your internet, which is becoming more and more data capped. Which it shouldn't be, but it is. And when shit like that happens, I can totally see why fucking internet providers are just like, you're using up our electricity. Yeah. Like, we have to pay bills too.
Like, why the fuck would you download 200 gigs in one day?
I'm not saying that they should be data capping and that they should, you know, like, use anything as a real excuse, like Verizon coming up with that people, you know, walking through the door bullshit. Yeah. Verizon, update your networks. But like, yeah, like that is also just a dumb move when you update a console for 200 gigs.
But I have to say, I think the Xbox One S looks the best out of all of them at this point.
I wasn't a huge fan of the PlayStation 4S. I think
the 4 looked good. I thought it looked better than the Xbox One.
The PlayStation 4 looks phenomenal. I think they so like what they did with the PS3 was they actually kind of like took the original design but made it better. It seems like with the S and the 4 Pro, it kind of seems like they instead took the same design and tried to iterate on it instead of...
You have 3 layers instead of 2 now. Hope that guy got fired.
I'm not entirely against it, but yeah, it's just kind of
it's just kind of silly.
You need new designers. You
yeah, it's interesting. You know, like the PS2 and the PS2 Slim, the PS3 Slim, and PS3 Super Slim, or whatever they called it. Like they all were like the same general design. It was.
But improvements.
Improvements, right.
But these are just the same general design.
It's really not
without
improving at all. Well, actually, the Microsoft the Xbox One and Xbox One S seems to be completely different, are they not?
No. They have the same design, but it's amazing how size can really make a difference.
I need to look at an Xbox One.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'm not on Wi-Fi. It'll be fine.
In fact, type both of them in Xbox One and Xbox One S, and you'll see the differences. And while the design choices are small, they are still quite nice. Xbox One and Xbox One S. There it is.
Okay, yeah, I remember. Okay, that's the Xbox. Yeah, the One S, it's okay. It's similar. It's just not as
Now, here is something I do want to touch on that I think people, in my opinion, are wrongly comparing. Mm-hmm. They're trying to compare the Xbox One S to the PlayStation 4 Pro. I think that is a mistake because The PlayStation 4 Pro still has beefier innards than the Xbox One S, and that does separate the box.
That was a good refinement, I think, between the Xbox One and the One S.
It really is.
It's a really nice refinement.
Like those not horizontal, those diagonal stripes on the original Xbox One. Like they got rid of those.
And instead of they use all the perforations, which obviously are functional on parts of it.
They use the I want to call that scoring, but it's basically dots. And it's a better look, and gotta give it to the white. Even though I don't like white electronics, I gotta give it to the white.
I got the white PS4. It's good, but I think the white Xbox One S looks better.
I have to agree. I think the PlayStation product line does look better in black. And somehow Microsoft does do really good with their white products.
Yeah, looks good. Yeah.
So, I've touched on everything I really wanted to say with this. These iterations and their names are really starting to hurt.
Yes. Go with a yearly naming strategy and just have like your 2015 iPhone with a 4.7-inch display, and then when the next year comes out, call it the same thing with a different year. That's all you need to do. And same thing with Sony. Keep your slims. I think you're entitled to that. But like the Pro line, no, it's called the 2016 PlayStation 4.
I 100% could have gotten behind them calling it the Elite, because the Elite name already existed, and even though that was started with Microsoft, Slim started with the PlayStation, and Microsoft went with Slim Xboxes. Like, at
so
least
calling it the S.
Or even still, people get it.
Which is confusing, because like the iPhone 6 and 6S, the S is a better refinement. It's not a slimmer version, so it's all a bunch of fuckery now with all these tech companies.
Yeah, it really is. Actually, it really is.
Yeah, just go with a year and call it the product, and maybe a screen size. That's it.
I think I would not be shocked if these console iterations actually flounder. And the market speaks and says, no, we do not want iterations. And you might even see that reflected in phones, too, where you stop seeing so many iterations.
I kind of hope so at this point.
Yeah, because it's just, it's proliferating a bit too much across parts of the industry it shouldn't be, like gaming consoles. What are you
gonna do? Have like
it will be the third year for PlayStation, I think, or the fourth year.
It's
I think we're going.
2013 was the PS4.
We're going into the fourth year. So technically, it's only been a complete 3 years, and then for Xbox, it will have been a complete 4 years going into the fifth year. You could wait just another fucking 2 years and just release a beefier console. And if you want to iterate, then say all the old games will play on it and blah blah, same OS, blah blah. And
yes.
And then just start single product line. But yeah, I'm not.
Simple's not a bad thing.
I'm not into the iteration. I would just buy another regular PS4 if they weren't coming out with new ones, because if mine is actually going, because I use it so much. So, all right.
Felt good to get that off my chest.
Yeah, I know. Fucking. Oh my! Oh.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I could probably talk for another half hour about Apple, but I won't.
I don't like bitch fests, personally, but this one, like, it's hard not to get away from that. And I was actually trying to steer away from all of the kind of negativity around it, but obviously, even still, it's just like, guys, you really did a poor job. So, sorry, Sony. Sorry, Apple. Do better, because...
Yeah, stop bloating your fucking reveals. Just reveal it.
Obviously, I'm almost 100% certain I'm going to move away from iPhone again. And if my account wasn't stuck to PS4, and for some reason, like, I lost all kinds of friends on PlayStation, there is another option. Xbox has a more powerful console coming next year, or at least that's what they're toting. So we'll see.
Yep, we will see. Well,
Mark, it's been a good one. This was a
really good one. I liked
episode.
it a lot. A lot of good banter back and forth.
And for the first time next week, we might actually be recording together. That could be very
God.
Cool. Big boner, big floppy.
I will
boners.
take all my Viagra.
Huh. Anyway, you guys have a good one out there. Thanks for watching. Do all that liking and subscribing and stuff. You know I don't like saying that. And remember, Internet,
do good things.
Get out there and do good things.